welcome back to CVO Gun Talk, the show that hardly talks about guns. How you doing, Mike?
Good. We talk about gun stuff.
Gun stuff. You're right.
It's gun talk, not, gun whatever.
So it's like, what time is it? 7 o'clock on Sunday night? What did we do all day?
So we were in a class called The Law of Self-Defense, specific to Iowa. It's a seminar taught by Andrew Branca. Did I say his last name right?
Yeah, close enough. I knew who you were talking about.
Yeah. So he wrote a book that just came out in the third edition. I actually read the book about 6 months ago. Very informative book about general subjects in regards to self-defense law, but this seminar was specific to where we live, so that was pretty cool.
I liked it. It's a good class.
Yeah, I mean, he talked about the 5 elements of that you need to have a solid self-defense defense, or what do you call it? What he kept saying, robust self-defense argument. Mm-hmm. So,
an actual defense.
Yeah, an actual defense,
Can't be missing any pieces of that.
And what I thought was pretty interesting was the fact that it's an all or nothing type deal.
Yeah.
Either you have all 5 elements or you don't.
Yep.
I'm going to screw this up, but I'm going to try to remember them off the top of my head.
Uh-oh.
You laughing at me, right? Because you probably got them in your notes, right?
I do have them in my notes.
Correct me then. So imminence.
Yes.
Right? Avoidance.
Yeah.
Reasonableness.
Mm-hmm.
That's 3.
Mm-hmm.
What's the other 2?
Proportionality.
Mm-hmm.
And how about innocence?
Innocence.
Yes.
I knew there was 2 I's in there.
You didn't do them in the right order, but But it doesn't happen all in the order, does it?
No.
All right. Like he said, I liked he spoke openly about Masayub, and that was a great because you've been through Masayub, right?
No, I have not. But I've read quite a bit of his books and stuff.
You need to go next year.
Yeah, I know.
It's a good compliment. It really is. Like you said, the big deal about this one was being Iowa specific. That was nice. And you and I, every other Wednesday night, or sometimes more often than that, go through a lot of those codes and tell people when I say our version. Like he said, very, very lawyery, when you read those. But people have a hard time. It's like it's a gray area. What about this? What about that? And
I was happy to see that our interpretation of the code sections was spot on with what he said.
It is.
But I learned something new today. So it was well worth the money. I'm going to wait till he sends out those hyperlinks and all that. I want to look at the case law and the jury instructions.
Jury instructions was fascinating, wasn't it?
I did not know there was such... I mean, I knew that judges gave jury instructions. I did not know there were specific jury instructions for every single, case, right?
I was writing those down left and right.
Yeah, I thought judges just said, okay, you guys go in the room and you, decide based on the evidence whether they're guilty or not. Mm-hmm. But I did a little research after the class, and for a lot of, reoccurring crimes, they have specific jury instructions that everybody uses. They just insert name here. Mm-hmm. So that was fascinating.
Yeah. Nope, I liked it. I liked it. You already made a post on Facebook about it today. I saw it. But yeah, what stuck out in your mind? What quote over and over?
He said there was for every time you get in a fight, there's a greater than 0% chance that you'll get killed and a greater than 0% chance that you'll go to jail.
Sure.
So, I mean, that's a fancy lawyer way of saying there's always a chance that you're going to get killed or go to jail no matter what type of fight it is.
Yeah.
So that's something, I mean, that kind of shows you how serious the subject is.
Serious it is. Yeah, I took, what is it? I was just looking as you walked in here. I think I took 19 and a half pages of notes. But, yeah, he called it the non-zero risk.
Non-zero risk.
Yeah, and I agree. It's like, let alone, you take a risk every time you step out of their house. But, yeah, obviously you tell yourself, okay, I don't even care if you had a firearm or not. If you're going to go interject yourself in some other situation, 2 dudes beating each other up or whatever, all you're doing is opening yourself up to a world of hurt sometimes.
Yeah, and he also, once again, I was happy to see that what we have been putting out is in line with somebody that's considered a national level expert on this sort of thing. But, I mean, you've always said, many times I've heard you say, there's a very short list of people that I would use deadly force in defense of.
Sure.
And he was spot on with the advice that you give out.
I liked his I liked how he referred to it though as the little bucket. You know, you
Yeah,
put
little
put
bucket.
these scenarios in your head. You know, hey, this I would put this scenario in this bucket and this bucket, and yeah, I'm going to shoot another human with a gun. Reasons I like that. That's a tiny bucket, but
Yep.
you know, but in the past, whether it was me or other people, or we saw it. We saw it. I don't know if you remember, you were helping teach the class, but I had a couple in class one time that I invited to come. He had posted the video. He was one of the people that recorded the
Yep,
shooting.
I remember that class.
Yeah,
Yep.
so you remember the couple I'm talking about. He knows where he's at out there. But it was just interesting. You would hear people like armchair quarterback him. You should have done this. You should have done that. And this was a guy who self-admittedly, with no training, you know, he legally has a firearm, yes, but no training, made the conscious decision to not get involved. He's like, you know, I got a young kid, or at the time had a pregnant wife and a young kid. You know, I'm going to stay on my couch and be a witness, and I'm going to film this, and I'm going to call the police. And you couldn't have done anything better than what he did.
No, I
You know?
mean,
And there was all kinds of people that jumped him. I think you remember that.
yeah, and those people would have been wrong. I mean, we knew that already, but just, let's say we didn't know that.
Yeah.
Let's say we just learned about this stuff today.
Yeah.
We went to the seminar, and so that piece speaks directly to the whole avoidance issue.
Yeah.
So you're going to insert yourself into a situation, use deadly force when you could have avoided it.
Yeah.
You'd be in jail.
And to help who? What innocent people?
Yeah, you don't even know what the situation is.
No. And, you know, like I referred, and I know you know the guy I'm thinking of, but, you know, I asked him on there, hey, in this video, all I see is a vague outline of some people that were in the street who turned out to be people that weren't even involved. They were like on the fringe of that area. Other than that, you have some kind of brawl taking place in the dark that turns into somebody shooting somebody. It's like you couldn't have gathered enough information to know what was the right thing to do.
Or processed it.
Yeah, you just had to stay out of it, which he did. And I admire him for it. I think he's smart. But a lot of bravado in the gun world. You know, I would have done this. You should have done that. Or we need more people in this world to stand up for people. And it's like, I'll stand up for the right people.
Yeah, I mean, and then, like you said, that list is going to be very, very small. And another way Andrew described it was, you know, who are you willing to go to jail for 20 years for?
Sure.
You know, on the last day you're in jail, would you do it again?
Yep.
If you knew what you knew then?
Sure. That was a great way to put it, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it's a very small list in my mind. I already, you know, you got your list, I got mine, and it doesn't include anybody that doesn't have my last name pretty much.
Yeah. You know, and I feel the same way. You know, I got coworkers I care about, you know, things like that. People you spend every day around, and you spend it, you know, to put it in context, you're like, okay, well, I know these people didn't start this fight. Somebody comes in the store, starts shooting people up. Yeah, I would try to defend my coworkers or whatever. But
Sure.
once you leave home, you know, or in my case, you leave work, where people that you work with a lot that are your friends, that you know the circumstances are, well, it's not like my employee just killed somebody and now this person's coming in there to shoot them. Well, it's got to be a small list, but I liked how he said that. You know, you just did 20 years in prison. You look in the mirror on the last day that you're there for 20 years and say, yeah, I'd do that again. You know, has to be that sure.
Yep.
It better not include your dog.
Yeah, that's a big, I mean, my wife would freak out. I mean,
Your wife should go to class.
she should.
Yeah. We don't kill people over dogs.
No, but I'll tell you right now, she's one of the people that would, you know, defend her dog, I guess. I don't know if she'd use deadly force.
Defend her property with deadly force?
Well, if she had, I think if she had the opportunity, she probably would, because, I mean, he called it out. Dogs become part of your family, pets become part of your family, but legally, and it's hard for people to conceptualize that, legally they are property. So you cannot defend them with deadly force. As much as I like Ted, Ted's my buddy.
Yep. I've seen Ted.
You know, Ted's going to have to go bye-bye.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. So I just don't think my wife would be able to make that
Make rational decisions.
rational decision if somebody. So that's a tough one, man. What do you do, right?
It is tough. And he even said that. I mean, it's people get sucked in by anger, you know, and it's the older you get, I'd like to think you get a little bit more wiser. I know I did, but it's easy to get suckered into things when there's high emotions and you perceive there to be, you know, that someone's doing you wrong, and they are doing you wrong. But hey, you know what? the dog can be replaced.
I also like the way, we always talk about the body's natural reactions and that distortion of perception of time and, the rise of visual acuity, the center field of vision, and all these things we talk about over and over and over. But he actually described it to me without saying those words in a way that even made it more clear to me when he talked about his first parachute jump,
Sure.
like his first solo one.
Yeah.
And he talked about, it's kind of funny, he talked about how as the altitude got higher, his brain got smaller until the only thing that made him jump out of that plane was pride.
Yeah.
And everybody does a lot of stupid things for pride. And I was thinking back to my days when I used to do cool guy stuff like that, and I'm like, you know what? That's pretty much the reason I started doing what I was doing, and that's pretty much the way I felt a lot. Like different things, right? You get used to things eventually, but the first few times you do something that's inherently dangerous, that you could potentially die doing it, it's like you get tunnel vision, and you're not like catatonic, but like you're like a robot.
Sure.
Like you're going to do exactly what you set out to do, but don't mess with the plan because I'm not going to be able to process that information. And that's how people die, right? That's how people die in the context of parachuting.
Yeah.
So maybe it's your first or second time, and even though you've done all these malfunction drills, you jump out, and then you're kind of, I'm not calling it spacey, but you're just kind of not there. And then you have a malfunction, and it's not going right, and you just kind of panic. And the same thing would happen, I think, in a situation where you may have to use deadly force if you haven't trained for that scenario.
Sure. There's definitely been people that were presented with deadly force that didn't have the right solution. And like he said today, there's, one of the things he said today is we're all a 50 cents box cutter away from sitting on the side of the road, feeling the blood come out of your neck and wondering how you're going to spend the last 2 minutes of your life.
Yeah, and that could happen to anybody.
It could happen to anybody. You're right. Just like Pincus always, he talks out of both sides of his mouth. And I mean that in a good way. Like, hey, go train for this so you have a better chance of surviving it. Even though a bunch of people that have survived defending themselves had no training. And some people look at that and go, well, if the majority of people that survive gunfights didn't have any training, why do I need any? Well, if you were going to make me jump out of an airplane, I'd want some training.
Yeah, you could potentially
And pride would not make me jump out of an airplane.
No.
Your foot in my ass might make me leave the plane. That's going to be about it. Yep. I don't think I would.
Well,
do that at
the
this.
other side of that,
When
though,
I was younger and dumber, I would have done it.
Yeah. Well, we all did that stuff when we were young.
Sure. You would still go do it again, I bet.
Yeah, I would.
For you, it's
yeah,
nothing.
I would.
We should do that.
I wouldn't say
we're going to do a live podcast
No, we're
while
not.
skydiving.
No, we're not.
Okay.
Anyway, the other side
I'll
of
be
that.
on the ground. I'll be talking to you, talking about, you look really small up there.
Hey, what are you doing? The other thing, the other part of that, though, is, and the other reality is you can take all the training you want, and there's no guarantee you're going to win
No.
because there's no rules
There's no rules for the bad guy.
for the bad guy.
We have lots of rules.
Yeah, we have lots of rules. But the totality of the entire scenario, I think, is, hedge your bets, try to make yourself as ready as possible, but there's no guarantee that you're gonna be the guy.
You mean there isn't a non-zero risk factor?
Right, there's no non-zero chance.
There's no non-zero.
Or there is no zero chance. There is a non-zero chance.
So I'm definitely going to have him back. Things like land the plane. I know some people have been through that, but I just sat there today saying, and even Cornbread came up to me and said, I keep going to these different people, these top people and learning things, and they keep all saying the same thing. I'm like,
That's because it's good advice.
it's the right advice.
It is.
Which is, if you learned one thing from this, I asked a couple of the people there, they're like, well, basically, it's like, try to stay out of everything. It's like, there you go. Yeah. Try to stay out of everything.
You had I was surprised to see how many people were there today, honestly. Was there like 30 people, maybe?
Something, yeah.
I just estimated based on quick look around the room.
Wide variety of backgrounds.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and what kind of feedback did you get after I left? Because I had to leave before the simulator deal.
Oh, nothing but, yeah. I mean, a lot of classes, like let's say Mass IU, people walk out of there and there's certain things that stick with that person. But same thing happened here other than people are like, pretty much really brings it home that you should stay out of it. If you don't know what's going on, stay out of it. Or go get further training so the gun isn't always the answer, because the gun isn't always the answer. The gun's rarely the answer. But we all, in this world, you remember the cases, of so-and-so had to shoot somebody. Well, for every one of those, there was a bunch of people that got out of a situation by running away.
Yeah.
Or leaving, or screaming at somebody, or jabbing them in the eye. Sometimes you just have to jab them in the eye.
Do you ever see that internet, just totally off subject, but that just, when he said poke the finger,
Yeah.
and then you just said, did you ever see that YouTube video? And I've seen it titled many different things, but in reality, it was a Colombian Special Forces major and a U.S. Special Forces, I think he was a non-commissioned officer or something like that. Anyway, they were down there working together, and they decided to, like, have a little sparring match.
Mm-hmm.
And the American dude, right off the get, just poked him right in the eye.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw
That's hilarious.
it.
Because
I bet
poking you
that-
in the eye hurts.
It hurts. You don't just fight through that for the first couple seconds.
No, I mean, the guy started throwing up.
Sure.
I mean, it hurt so bad because, I mean, he just didn't, like, go like the Three Stooges, like,
Oh, no.
boink.
Yeah.
He just, like, he jabbed him in the eye like he meant it.
Yeah.
And the guy stopped immediately.
Sure.
And started throwing up.
Sure.
So that's what I was thinking of today when he said that.
There's that octave nerve that's connected to your eyeball that goes right to your brain a couple inches behind it. Yeah, if you've ever been hit real hard in the eye. I got my loving sister when I was younger hit me in the eye with a golf club. I ended up in the hospital, but that's a shock to the system to take a big impact to the eye. So, and even just fingers. So, yeah, we're definitely going to have him back. And I definitely, I think I'd like to have him back and do the level 1 thing again, and then get a pool of people together and do his level 2 class, because I'd like that. That was good information. Driving home made me think of it. I said, hey, I got a topic. So driving home from class, going down some of the same roads I did the other day, made me think of getting pulled over by the police. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk about interaction with the police.
Interaction with the police.
I think you got a good story.
I do have a good story. So the other night, wanted to hurry up and take advantage of like the last couple hours of light. So me and my wife are going to go up to the Wapsie and go walleye fishing. And magically, I was doing like 10 miles per hour over the speed limit. Got pulled over. Especially when you're driving a car with no plates. That's going to happen.
Were they profiling you?
They were not profiling me. They were probably paying attention to the fact that I was going like 65 in a 55 zone.
With no plates on your
With no plates on my truck. So I got to meet a Iowa State patrol officer. So, but yeah, it's like, man, I wish I had that whole thing on video. But, I wouldn't want it. Then that would seem personal about him, and it's not. It was about the experience. Because you and I, we talk in detail about this in class.
Like how to interact with police.
How to interact with police when you're wearing a firearm. And I'm like, oh, here we go. My wife's totally bored. All she cares about is I'm wasting like the next 16 to 20 minutes on the side of the road that we could be fishing.
Right.
Like we would be in the boat
We're
at this
losing
point.
the light right now.
Oh, man. So she was just like shaking her head. And so anyway, guy's really nice. Like, hey, you're going a little bit fast back there. I need to see this, this, and this, and this. So I get the stuff out of the glove compartment, and he's looking through that, and he's like, hey, I just need you to come on back with me and sign this warning. So it's like nice of him to give me a warning.
And what do we tell people when law enforcement asks
There we
you
go.
to get out of the car?
So, regardless of what the law says or what is or isn't right or wrong, we're not going to tell you to do anything that's wrong legally. Do you have to tell him you even have a firearm on you? No.
not in the state of Iowa.
Nope. So I'm going to follow my own. Great point. If that had that been in Michigan, different story. So, I'm going to follow my own advice. It's the advice I give people because I think it's the best advice. So I'm going to follow it myself. So,
what advice is that?
here's the 2 rules. People always want to say, should I tell this officer I have a gun? Well, my advice is, first of all, you always can. If you're going to do so by handing them your permit first or saying, here's my permit to carry. I'm armed. What would you like me to do? That's if you want to tell them. But so my advice I have, in class is if they ask you if you have a firearm, I'm never going to lie about it. I'm not going to lie about that. And if they ever ask you to get out of the car. So being a trooper, you know how this works. He's like, hey, come on back to my cruiser so you can sign your warning or whatever. And I'm like, hey, sir. And he's like, yep. And I still have my wallet in my hand. I said, there's a permit in there to carry a gun, which is on the front of me in an appendix style holster. He's like, you have a gun on? And I'm like, yep. And he's like, okay. He's like, are you right or left-handed? I'm like, I'm right-handed. So I'm like, in my head, I'm already going, I know what this is about. And I'm like, I can't believe this, but whatever. The thing you do is you comply, right?
Well, absolutely.
So he's like, with your left hand, why don't you go ahead and take that gun out and hand it to me? And it's like, okay, remember I said I'm going to comply, and whether I have respectful irreverence with him or not, I said, hey, I'm going to go ahead and unclip it and hand you the gun in the holster.
Keeping it in the holster.
Keep it in the holster.
Not really a good idea to hand a cop or reach for a loaded gun.
I am not going to reach for a loaded gun and pull it out of a holster in front of an officer.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things that, people would say, okay, you just failed to follow a, lawful order, comply with a lawful order, which the only difference was I very politely said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hand you the whole thing. I didn't say I'm not going to give you my gun. I said, I'm going to hand you the whole thing in the holster. So I handed him the gun in the holster. He chose to deal with that gun how he wanted to deal with it. That's fine. He unloaded it, gave it back to me, asked me to put it on the dash, and then I went back to his cruiser, and he had me sign his warning. And I asked him about it. I openly want to know what his thought process was on that. And, he had a thought process for him, how he does it. Like he said, it's up to individual officers. So like we always tell people in class is, this probably won't likely happen, but anything could happen. And of all people, it happened to me. I've never seen an officer take a gun off anybody before that had a permit, but hey, happens. But it was an interesting experience. I told my wife, she's like, just let it be or whatever. I'm like, no, I just found it fascinating. She was mad because what am I doing? I'm sitting back here for 10 minutes in the car with him, talking back and forth about all this.
So what was his rationale? Can you tell us? Or?
Well, yeah, I mean, his point was, he's like, hey, I don't want you in my car with a gun on, and it's like, hey, cool, it's your car, and I'm thinking, well, you could have just left me in my own car,
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Could have left, or what's the? And I'll play devil's advocate here.
Sure.
So what's the advantage of leaving a gun in the car with your wife?
Yeah.
I mean
I can't speak for him, but I understand he's looking at the fact that, it's all unloaded now. And, again, you have spidey sense. You got to follow your spidey sense, right?
Sure.
To where I don't think the guy was ever really worried about anything. It's just his rule that I'm not going to be in his car with a gun. So,
fair enough.
Hey, fair enough. I don't have to agree with it. I just have to comply with it for the next 10 minutes while I spend with this guy. You know what I mean? So he was very nice about it. But he's like, yeah, I don't want you to, first of all, people need to understand things very much so. And he's like, well, instead of me walking back up in there or have you walk back and forth here and there, as a patrol officer or, highway patrol, he has you sit in the car because it's very true that, hey, guess what? You ever watch those videos where the cops are on the side of the road talking to people and other cars run into them or run over them?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of those
or
videos.
rear end them.
Yeah.
They're dealing with one drunk and they get hit by another. So I totally get it when he says, I'm just going to sit in my car because it gets me and him off the road. Safest place to do it. And it could be raining, windy, whatever, snowing, and all the more. And people will be like, oh, they're too lazy to be out in the rain. No, the whole point is the rain there diminishes people's vision, makes cars not slow down as fast. So all the more times you see crashes on the side of the road, how many times is it raining or it's snowing?
Quite a few.
Yeah.
And also, that's not a one-time deal for them.
No.
In their defense, they pull over 10, 20 people a day.
Yeah.
So you're going to spend all day in the rain? Would you do that?
No.
Yeah.
No. But no, it was an interesting experience. But, it's just funny. I got back in the car. I told my wife, I'm like, you can't make this up. That's awesome. And I literally, I'm glad it happened to me. Because, I did exactly what I'd tell students to do, which is if you can, first of all, follow whatever their commands are.
Because how many different instances, I can think of at least two, where that could have went very badly if you wouldn't have complied.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, I understand. Yeah, and there's what could happen. This is just me. You said play devil's advocate. Why would I never ask anybody to do that? Because some people, I was totally not nervous, and again, I think you've been in a class where I've told you before, it's like, okay, you want to say, well, I saw this on YouTube and I saw this. I'm not saying no policeman ever has unjustifiably hurt someone. But you know what? I don't spend any time worrying about that because the same chances of that are the same as winning the lottery. So I'm not worried about him hurting me. So I'm not worried about taking my gun off because he's going to take me on the side of the road and shoot me.
Yeah.
But I can understand, the problem is if people were nervous, let's say you have some really nervous person, chances some people get nervous when they're pulled over by the police. And I mean, like, good people. They
haven't even done anything.
That's what I mean, is they're just nervous dealing with the police.
Yeah.
And, you know, if I just simply would have followed his directions, pulled the gun straight up out of the holster instead of taking the holster off, is it possible some nervous person, as they do that, boom, touch their trigger when they shouldn't, put a round in their leg? Now, whose fault is that? It's the person that pulled the trigger on their gun. But I just wouldn't want to be the person to ask somebody to pull their gun out of their holster and hand it to me. I didn't want any misconceptions. And I told him that. I'm like, I'm never going to have anybody, you know, I'm not going to have some Lynn County deputy pull up on the other side, right? Because, you know, they do that. Like, hey, this trooper's got somebody pulled over.
You know, you code 4. Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, you know, have them walk up on the other side of the car. It might even be, most likely, some Lynn County deputy that knows me, or he's talking to my wife or whatever, and this and that, and sees me pull a gun up out of my holster. That would make me nervous if I was any deputy. So it was an interesting experience. It'd be interesting to see. I'll do some more asking around. I just, you know, when you ask students, they're like, hey, I got pulled over and this happened or that happened and this happened. And, you know, what if they want to take my gun from me? And I'm like, well, you know, what if they ask you that, then do that. But I've never heard of that. And now I've lived through it. So
yeah, the last interaction I had with it's always Iowa State Patrol, because maybe we're always speeding. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
anyway,
anyway,
I do remind, you know, I told my wife, I said, this did happen because I was driving 64.5 miles per hour because I wanted to go walleye
the last
fishing.
time I had any interaction with law enforcement was the same deal. Iowa State Patrol. Apparently, I was speeding, and my wife was in the car. So similar scenario.
Sure.
He did not ask me to get out of the car. I did have a gun on, and I never told him because I don't have to. And he never asked me to get out, so it wasn't an issue. So, you know, totally different scenario ending, but same sort of scenario to begin with, I guess.
You didn't have to take your gun off with your left hand.
No, I did not.
I'm glad it was easy to do. Yeah. And my wife then lectured me again about the 20 minutes we lost not fishing. But
Did you catch any fish?
we actually did that night.
Well, there you go.
So it was worth it.
There you
But we probably would have caught more fish if I had been there 20 minutes earlier.
Yeah, you would have caught the big one.
I just laugh thinking to myself, it's one of those things, it's like every time you ever think of yourself speeding, it's like, if I keep going this speed and I don't get pulled over, I get there 2.5 minutes faster than if I drove the speed limit. So it's not worth it. Okay, police. Talking about police. You and I had this conversation the other day. Should police have to carry guns when they're off duty?
So there's a couple different ways to think about it, right? I'm not going to say struggle, but I kind of argue with myself about it. Mm-hmm. One part of me is like, yes, they should. They have an obligation. They're a law enforcement officer 24/7. Mm-hmm. You can argue that they have a responsibility 24/7 to, you know, uphold the laws. They're expected to respond, even as a reserve. You know, even though I'm not on 24/7, I do have a duty to respond in my jurisdiction if it's an all hands on deck type deal.
Sure.
So in that context, yes, they should carry 24/7. On the other context, though, it's a free country. You can't mandate people to do things, when they're not on duty on their personal time.
Sure.
You know, you can make that argument as well. But why I wanted to talk about this was there was an article, I don't know where I saw it, on the web somewhere, but it was a credible news source. Maybe it was Police One.
A couple of them. You're going to talk about Washington?
Yeah, so there's a sheriff in a jurisdiction up in Washington State, was not in his jurisdiction, was at the mall, and by his own admission, he was having a drink and dinner with his wife.
Yep.
So I don't know what a drink means. Does that mean like drinks,
like
alcoholic,
like
or
a yard of beer.
like a yardie?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Like Simon's doing now.
Yeah. Is he?
I don't know.
No, he's not.
Usually chances are.
Maybe. But, so I don't know what drinks means or drink means. Yeah. But there was an active shooter event in the mall he was in, and he was unarmed. Mm-hmm. The part I wanted to talk about, or the part that I guess bothered me the most, was not the fact that he was unarmed per se, but the fact that afterwards he said he would do it again the same way, even knowing what he knew. Mm-hmm. And I just didn't understand that. I didn't understand that reaction.
Well, and again, we don't know every detail because does he, what he means is, hey, was I, I had 2 or 3 beers, so I would have been at .06, so I'm not against the law, but, who knows? Think about it in the context of today. Now, one of the things today is, he's like, oh, if you're in the middle of an active shooter, spree killer kind of thing, there's nobody going to prosecute you for that. And I'm not saying that Andrew said they would never prosecute you, but what I'm saying is I do understand he's getting at the point to where if you got to go do bad things to save 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 people, you're most likely going to be seen as the good guy. But you and I both know also is, hey, I could shoot the bad guy and the bullet goes through him and ricochets off the support beam inside Yonkers and goes over there and paralyzes that kid. It is my bullet.
Yeah, and you're responsible for every bullet that
I'm
comes out of the gun.
responsible for it. So, yeah, I understand what you mean. And he also said, hey, it bothered me. I didn't have my gun, but then I got reassurance from other guys I did the right thing because I wasn't in my own jurisdiction. You were in the state of Washington. You're a police officer in the state of Washington. Yeah. The whole state of Washington is actually, now, granted, it's not his beat or where he works, but you're a sworn officer of that state.
See, I think I'm feeling your vibe here. I think we feel the same way. Like, I gave the 2 sides of the argument. Mm-hmm. I'm on this side over here.
What side is your side?
My side is if you're a police officer, you ought to be carrying. You ought to be. I'm not going to force you to, but you ought to be.
Oh, no. Okay, now you said you ought to be. Now I agree. But here's where I disagree. You shouldn't be carrying and drinking.
No, I'm not saying that at all. Within the law.
What you and I don't, let's just say maybe some county area around here. I'm just making things up. It's against their standard operating procedures for you to have any alcohol in your system and be carrying. So maybe he was abiding by his work rules.
Totally reasonable, and I get that. And if that's the case, then he's fine.
Sure. Well, he's fine no matter
However, okay, so let's not use this. I mean, I was bringing that example as a point of discussion.
No, you brought up that example.
I brought up that example as a point of discussion, right?
Sure.
So let's expand it a little bit.
Okay.
How many cops do you know that don't carry off duty, and it doesn't? I mean, they just
I know
don't.
Lots of cops that don't carry off duty.
Yeah, so do I.
Sure. No,
so
but I don't think they have. I really don't want to see.
You don't think they have an obligation to?
Nope.
Why is that?
Do you see surgeons driving around carrying scalpels in their car? Because they save lives? Emergency doctors?
No, they don't.
Should emergency doctors have to do surgery on the side of the road?
Should emergency doctors have to stop at an accident and render aid if they have the ability?
If they have the ability, they would. But did he have the ability? He didn't have his gun on him.
Let's just throw away this guy.
No. You made the comparison of hey,
I'm
if you're
talking
a doctor,
about law enforcement in general.
Okay.
You brought up the doctor thing.
Well, no, but you're saying they should have to.
I'm saying they should if they have the ability. And I'm not saying
you should morally in their own head?
I'm saying I don't think you need to mandate it. I'm thinking if you're a law enforcement officer with the training and experience and the equipment that you have,
sure,
you ought to have a gun with you.
That's the good thing about the freedom of America. They don't have to. I mean, I know guys that are they're so sick of wearing a gun by the time they work their 40, 50 hours a week or whatever. Maybe they got forced overtime. Now they have 60 hours a week. Last thing they want to do is be reminded of this tool that associates them with work. And they don't want the responsibility of it.
Okay, I think that's a cop-out.
Was that a pun?
It was a little pun.
Okay. So you think it's
very punny.
All right.
I'll put it to you this way. So I work as a paramedic. It's my full-time job.
Sure.
If I was on the highway and saw an accident and I was the first one on scene and I saw obvious injuries, I would stop. I've got a trauma bag in the back of my car. I would do what I could. Do they make you do that? No. They say in every class you go to, you're under no obligation to do that.
Yeah.
But I don't think I could live with myself if I didn't. And I'm talking personal opinion here.
Sure.
I'm not saying they're bad people because they don't.
Yeah.
I'm saying I think they oughta.
Okay. If you try to help somebody on the side of the road with your trauma bag and you end up doing something wrong because, it's outside venting at 2 a.m. at night and it's dark and you don't have any help and you're trying to solve some serious issues and you screw up and hurt them, is there a law that protects you?
There is. It's called the Good Samaritan Law. As long as you work within your scope of practice. Yeah, I don't do anything crazy like trying to do open heart surgery. and I have make a good faith effort, then I've got some protection under the law for anything that may go wrong.
Is there any law for like that if somebody uses a gun and makes a mistake?
Well, they'd have to look at the, preponderance of the evidence or whatever.
Knowing what you know is if you screw up with a gun, is it different than screwing up trying to do something on the side
Are
of the
you
road?
saying a law enforcement officer, a sworn law enforcement officer that's covered by HR 218, which gives them
the privilege?
is not going to be covered if they try to help somebody?
I don't think they are.
Maybe that's a question we need to ask.
HR 218 just lets a cop carry a gun anywhere in
Right.
the country.
Right.
It doesn't give you any extra rights or protection. You screw up and shoot the wrong person.
You always have the right,
to shoot.
but it doesn't give you any. No. You have the right to self-defense, right? That's what I'm.
But you weren't saying self-defense.
No, you said
You brought it up in the
It
context
says you said it
You
doesn't
brought
give
it
them
up
any
in the
extra rights. It's not a right, but maybe it doesn't give them any extra protection. I'll give you that.
You're right. Let's use that word. Another pun. You're right. He doesn't get the same. He, she. They get armchair quarterback way more than you ever would by accidentally paralyzing somebody because you did CPR on them on the side of the road, not realizing they already had a spinal injury, and then it's proven that you, moving them around and breaking their ribs doing CPR the way you have to, you paralyzed them.
You don't think that gets scrutiny? I think everybody's open to scrutiny.
Would it get scrutiny? Yes. But do things change when you use a firearm?
I would say perceptions change, yes.
Yeah. And even when you're an officer, do things change when you weren't required or sent there or dispatched there? Now you're a cop that has 2 beers in you with your wife out for dinner, and you choose
you keep bringing up the beer. That's not relevant.
Okay.
I'm not saying he did anything wrong if he was in that. So I'm saying
you're a cop
sober,
drinking Dasani water like I do, so I can carry my gun
Dasani
everywhere.
water, right?
And something happens. It's not my responsibility.
Not your responsibility, but I think it ought to be your, I don't know the word I want to use. Not responsibility, not like you're mandated to do it, but you ought to.
You're starting to sound like those people that said that guy on the porch should have went and done something.
Not at all. What are you talking about?
Remember my small bucket? I have a really small bucket.
It's a different bucket. If you're not looking at it in the right context here. I'm saying if you have a mass shooting event, you ought to have the tools to do something about it.
You ought to
if you
have the
can.
tools to do something about it, or you should do something about it if you have the tools with you.
Yeah. You ought to do something about it. You're under a different, I want to say onus or a different expectation as a law enforcement officer, at least in my mind, than your average everyday citizen. You can't say,
But that's
I'm a cop and now I'm not a cop. You're always a cop.
You know what, though? How much of that is also a problem in this country of there needs to be times that you're not a cop? I mean, they need their time off. They
get
need their
that.
time away from the
They
world.
get plenty of time
The only
off.
reason they can do all the crap they do and deal with the crap that they do and the shit you see and, how many times have you had to deal with?
You're going to make me the cop hater, right? I'm going to be
No.
like the cop hating guy because I'm about ready to say something.
No, not at all.
I'm about ready to say something.
All I'm saying is I totally believe in the idea that there's times that's the last thing they want to be. They just want to be a dude kayaking down the river
I totally
with no
get
responsibilities.
that, which 99% of the time they get to do.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of, oh, woe is me in this country about a lot of different things. Like, oh my God, I was in Iraq 4 times, so oh my God, I got these problems, right? It's a bunch of...
Careful now. That wasn't me. That was you.
That
saying
was me.
That's Special Forces Mike.
No, we don't have to say Special Forces, Mike. This is Mike's opinion, right? I think there's a lot of woe is me, and there's some validity to a lot of it, but I think it's overblown by this society. And I don't think most people feel that way. I don't think most cops are like, oh, my job is so stressful that I don't ever want to think about it.
Oh, no, but I know a lot of cops that are, when they want their day off or their 3-day weekend off, last thing they want to do is think about cop stuff.
Well, I agree there. Nobody wants to think about their job 24/7.
So if they want to go get hammered and float down the river and have no gun, they need to do that.
And that's fine.
It's good for them.
I'm talking about they're not hammered. They're not floating down the river.
All right.
If they have the opportunity to carry a firearm and they can legally do so, they ought to be doing it.
Well, so they should carry a gun. You got to be careful about making people think it's their day off. I mean, I don't want you telling me that I have to do my job on my day off.
I'm not telling you. I said you ought
No, you're
to.
making them feel guilty if they don't.
If the shoe fits, wear it.
It's a flip-flop. It's a shower shoe. It's not a shoe.
Combat flip-flops.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
You don't know?
Each to
you don't
their own.
agree with me?
No, it's not about... There's two sides. Do I think as many qualified people as possible should carry guns if they want to? Yes. But I don't think because they're an officer that they should feel compelled that they have to. And when I say have to, first of all, their job's not going to tell them that. Their boss can't say,
No.
you will carry all the time.
No employer can do that.
No. So, and the other thing is, you'll have people that be like, well, our boss basically insinuated, the chief says we should carry all the time. Well, is the chief going to have your back in every single shooting, including the ones when you're not on duty? Because we've seen people hung out to dry there really
That's true.
quickly.
It's true.
So it's back to they're risking everything. They're risking everything.
I don't
not
agree.
even at work.
What did we not talk today about the responsibility to protect yourself?
Protect yourself.
Okay. So, as an officer, since you have the experience and training, let's just break it down to that. Let's not even say we're protecting the public, because I think that's where your hang up is, or where you're not even disagreeing with me, because I don't disagree with you on that.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but
I'm just saying,
shouldn't
shouldn't we have more people out there that are willing to protect even their own family, so it's not your responsibility or my responsibility? Or we don't feel like it's our responsibility?
I want more people to have the skills to keep themselves safer.
There you go.
So more good people live.
There you go. So you just said exactly what I've been saying.
Sure.
So if you got the experience and training as a law enforcement officer, you should give yourself that opportunity.
So if we could get every off-duty officer to know how to do CPR and do it at every opportunity, have medical training, not text and drive and don't drink and drive, we
Right.
would save more people.
Well, yeah, obviously. And
I don't want to tell them they have to carry a gun when they're not at work.
all right.
But
I'm not telling them they have to carry a gun. I'm saying
I'm kind of getting that vibe from you. You just said I think they should have to.
No, I said they oughta. There's
They
a
oughta.
difference.
All right.
That's a different legal term. Look it up. Oughta.
Oughta. It's in there. It's next to decider, which you used that word today. I liked it.
Yeah.
Me, Andrew Bronca, and George Bush used that word.
Yeah.
I am the decider. We're having Zoe's pizza. No, but it's just one of those things that in this day and age, cops get so armchair quarterback, and look at how the media treats them. Look at how half the country treats them. Look how ginormous movements of people treat them. Why do they want to? What's it always involve? Use of force.
Sure.
So why wouldn't it be the last thing they're interested in on their days off?
Yeah, but I don't care about that. I don't care.
So you don't care about them?
No,
Okay.
no,
All right.
no. Let me. I'm going to make this statement public right now.
All right, go.
They will not find anybody that is a stronger supporter of law enforcement than myself, and you know that,
That's good.
or the military, and you know that. However, I don't babysit people, and I don't feel sorry for them because they don't need that. They don't need me feeling sorry for them because they've had a hard day at work. So, if they're a cop and they've got the experience and training,
Sure.
they ought to be willing to protect.
Okay.
That's all I'm
How
saying.
much experience and training?
More than the dude that doesn't have any. More than zero.
More than zero. Isn't it non-zero? What's the
Yeah,
What's
non-zero.
the quote of the day? All right. So you think all cops should carry off duty?
I think they should.
All right. Okay. Speaking of cops, speaking of veterans,
was fun.
which
Can we argue about something else?
You spoke of veterans. I'm not gonna. You're gonna burn in hell for that. It's all right. So
Why?
No, I mean it's good. See, that's the point.
I am not going to burn in hell. I didn't say anything wrong.
You have a ray gun coaster? Did you actually pay for this? Huh. 5 seasons. 126,326 attractive residents. They have not looked around and seen what I've seen. I don't think so. Have they seen me? Not attractive. All right.
325.
Yes. So you can trash talk anything, and I wasn't even saying that you're trash talking. You can,
Because I'm not.
You're not, but you can be military Mike, say whatever you want. I have a lot of respect for everybody in the military.
I'm being me, citizen of the United States.
I like it.
It's called
All
the
right.
First Amendment, dude.
Let's talk about the Second Amendment then.
Okay, let's talk about the Second Amendment. What are you talking about?
I know you self-admittedly, so this is where we should just say, then let's not talk about it. Self-admittedly, you're like, I don't know that much about many cases, but it's starting to come to light that it looks like there's like not just my brother's cousin's, girlfriend told us this story about her dad is you have, Senator Grassley, I think, looking into it right now?
Yeah, so I'm going to read a...
Yeah. Some people don't like Grassley.
No, I mean, but he's a longtime senator, and he is very proactive when it comes to veterans' rights. So a lot of reports, and so I'm just going to read this little blurb here. As of December 2015, the VA, or Veterans Administration, which does all the health care for vets, has reportedly 260,381 individuals to the FBI, effectively making them prohibited firearm possessors under the law. And the reason they were reported is because they have been assigned a fiduciary trustee to act on their behalf, which is automatically declaring them mentally defective. So, in a nutshell, for you people that don't understand all those words, because I had to look them up.
Let's do it. Those are big words.
So, they don't think you can manage your own money.
Yeah.
So, they assign you a trustee to help you.
Yep.
And they're reporting you to the FBI as unable to manage your own affairs, and therefore they're taking away your Second Amendment rights.
So let me stop you right there for a minute. So, in your experience in the military, how many people are there in the military that can't manage their money?
Quite a few.
Sure. Of all different ages. A lot of young ones.
Well, I mean, when this is one of the craziest things. You might not even know this. You're going to agree with me. This is crazy, right?
Here we go.
So, about, I don't know, it's probably been about 20 years now, more than that, maybe 25. But when I first joined the military, when you used to go on a trip or used to have to go somewhere, or TDY they call it, right? Temporary duty. You're going somewhere other than your home station. You would go down to the pay cage, and they would give you 70% of whatever travel money they thought you were going to get at the end, because they pay you extra for travel money. I mean, if they're telling you to go somewhere, they're going to pay for your hotel, they're going to pay for your food, whatever. And we used to go on some long trips, like months. Sometimes 70% was thousands of dollars.
Sure.
And I would go get that cash, and I'd take it straight to the bank the whole time looking to see if someone's going to hit me on the head, and I'd use my credit card or whatever. Well, the military got smart eventually and decided that, well, we're not going to give people cash. We're going to give everybody a credit card. And they used American Express, if I remember right. So everybody got an American Express card. So that's the crazy thing. They're giving American Express cards with like an unlimited balance to 19-year-old kids and saying, don't you spend it on anything crazy now.
Sure.
You can just imagine where that goes. Right? They have problems all the time with people buying their wives presents and using it at strip clubs and, stuff like that. So, yeah.
Important things.
People don't manage their money well.
So, because you don't manage your money well and you're in the military, it's really not that uncommon.
No, it's not. In the general public, it's not uncommon.
No. As a country, I think that's why they call it our national debt. You mean our government's trying to tell people they should be more financially responsible? That is ironic.
It is ironic.
I think that's a definition of ironic. Like jumbo shrimp or something.
It's like jumbo, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Oxymoron.
Yeah. So, I get it. I get why you say it's wrong, and I agree. What I'm saying is that is a slippery slope, because is there some vets somewhere that are so far gone mentally they shouldn't have guns? You and I both know that's true.
Yeah, I'm not going to deny that.
But should it be based off their financial skills? No.
They haven't. This particular group of folks, and the reason I'm upset about it is they have not been diagnosed as, we'll say, mentally defective.
Sure.
Right? They just can't handle their money for whatever reason. I mean, who knows what the reason is? And they've been assigned a trustee to manage their estate, more or less.
Yep.
That's no different than when people do it for older folks. Do they give up their right to self-defense at that point?
Well, that's the question is, and again, let's just play devil's advocate. If the VA is doing it, That's why you're hearing the grumblings of, will the Social Security do that? Will they start saying, hey,
Social Security Administration?
Yep.
Yeah.
you can't manage your own money anymore, so you shouldn't have guns in your house?
So we're going to decide without due process. We talked about this last podcast.
Sure.
It's the same thing. So without
No-fly list?
No-fly list, right.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same thing. We're putting people on lists without due process. And their rights, which are not given to you, only enumerated by the Constitution, because you already have the natural right of self-defense, is being taken away without due process.
All right. I understand.
So Senator Grassley's looking into that, him and a few other senators.
Well,
so
you should do some thorough research on it.
more to
and we'll
come
talk
on that.
More. All right.
More to come.
If I wanted to build a pipeline across the state of Iowa or like the Dakotas, and I had the permits to build it and I was building it, should people be able to come in there and protest and get in my way and stop me from doing my job? Are they doing that without?
That's a curveball. You've been reading my Facebook page, haven't you?
Is that due process? To not wait for a court decision on it, but just to go say, we're going to stand in front of all the machinery and you can't do this?
But there was a court decision. They gave an injunction.
They did that after all the people walked in.
Yes, they did. But wait a minute.
If you were a policeman up there, would you have arrested the people that were trespassing?
No. And they didn't arrest anybody. And they weren't trespassing. They were on their own reservation land.
Okay.
So what Ernie's talking about, if you guys haven't followed, there is...
I was just told you had said due process so many times. I'm like, hey, I'm going to bring this up.
So there's a group of Native Americans, and it's quite a large group. I mean, it started out as a group of folks on the Standing Rock Indian Reservation up in North Dakota, which is where my daughter was born, by the way.
Super cool.
Super cool. And there's a pipeline. What's the name of it?
I don't know.
I don't know. It's the big pipeline. What's it called? The big
it
pipeline.
makes gas happen. I
Yeah,
don't pay attention to it.
They're taking it from the oil fields in Canada across North Dakota, South Dakota, going through Iowa. I think it terminates in Missouri somewhere. I could be wrong on that. But so these folks up in North Dakota at the Standing Rock Indian Reservation are protesting because the pipeline is crossing the Missouri River right north of the reservation in their watershed where they get their water, and they're worried about environmental damage and a big spill, contaminating all the water. And there's also some, from what I understand, some
burial
burial sites, sacred sites, whatever, that are supposedly, some of them have already been destroyed. So they're protesting, the fact that they think they should rethink the route or go somewhere else or just stop it entirely. I mean, I've seen a lot of different reasons.
That's my thing is, so when I say I don't have a dog in that fight, I don't. I'm not Native American. I'm not saying I don't care. I'm saying I don't live there. I don't know the facts. I don't have a dog in this fight. All I can say is there are people all over the internet saying this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And then you can go on their same Facebook pages and saying we shouldn't be dependent on foreign oil. But how are we going to get it from there to here?
Say they're not being consistent?
We're not being consistent. I do believe in being a country that can build things and make our own gas and put our gas in the things that we build that might fly around in the air and drive around on the ground, that we should be a little bit.
Isn't Canada another country?
It's a friendly country.
But is it a foreign country?
No.
It's
We're connected to it. Yeah. It's not foreign if you're connected.
It's just America, but they got Timmy's.
Okay. It is an ally, though.
All right.
So
what if we were building it from Mexico to,
I'm totally cool
Missouri.
with that, too.
What if the people in Arizona were protesting it?
Did the Army of Mexico help you over in Afghanistan? Are they an ally, really?
I don't even know if Mexico has an army, but
They do. It helps with the drug trade.
it helps protect their drug traffickers.
Yes.
No, but I mean that's the situation. North Dakota.
I'm not belittling it. It's like I said, I wouldn't know what to believe until
I support the protesters, by the way.
That's fine. You support them all you want.
I do.
So, I support all the people that don't want to carry off duty. All right.
All right.
So you're going to find out more about the Second Amendment rights of.
I'll come back with a report on that.
Yeah, and it will be interesting for there to be real, actual official stuff, because Grassley will do a good job of. If there's any BS going on, he'll find out. I mean, people don't have to like Grassley to understand that. I agree with you. If you look at what he does for vets or how he respects them, that if there's anything going on, he will go find out. He'll chase after it.
He's very good at that. I mean, that's why he's been a senator.
The VA as a whole isn't doing very good in this country.
The VA, if you want to look at what's going to happen if we go to a single payer healthcare system, just look at the VA. That's what everybody's going to be doing.
Yeah.
It's not cool, man. Not
So,
cool at all.
When you say single payer, what do you mean by that?
Like government-run healthcare.
You mean like Obamacare?
Well, no, because that's not what we're doing right now. But we're going down that road.
Are we?
And that's what some people want.
They do want socialized medicine, don't they?
They do. Some people
Yes.
do. I just think it would be a disaster because the VA is a prime example. I mean, that's what you're going to end up with.
Speaking of the Canada pipeline, sit in a hospital in the waiting area in the emergency room in Canada and tell me how that medicine thing's working out for them.
I've never been there. I mean, I've been to Canada. I've never been to a hospital in Canada.
My wife was there this summer on our fishing trip and got to experience watching this lady get out of the car. Lady happened to be Native American. So she got out of her car.
First Nations is what they call them up there.
Yeah, very true. And I can almost remember the ginormous name of one of the nation we were in. And I met their police. They were very cool. At first, they were like, who's this dude? I had to walk up next to their car, as in my car was near their car. But I don't know if they're not used to people being nice to them or not. But I was like trying to be chatty.
It's Canada.
Cathy.
Everybody's nice.
Wow. They
like-
didn't really like me at first.
They're like,
But
sorry.
Yeah. But anyway, so this Native American lady got out of the car, had to get her own walker out of the car. My wife watched all this take place, and she, takes a walker and comes into the emergency room and proceeded to sit there a long, long time. And somebody came in to see her, took her in the back room, came back out, had her sit there, and they literally were just like, first of all, out loud in front of everybody. That's kind of different, right? Like, we're going to talk about what's wrong with you.
Yeah, like her personal information.
Yeah. And she's like, oh, okay, well, it is broke here, here, and here.
They probably don't have a HIPAA law up there. I mean, at least not the form that we have.
Not the form where the lady in the window is telling the lady sitting over there,
I'm sure your wife, and I know I could go on for hours about the HIPAA law.
Yeah.
Such a travesty.
But the point was, they just said out loud, yeah, your leg, it's broken here, here, and here. And my wife even said, she's like, yeah, her foot was like so far turned in. It's like, how are you even going anywhere? And so they tell her, yeah, sure enough, it's broken here, here, and here, whatever, and we'll get you in as soon as we can, maybe a couple weeks, this and this, and my wife's like, that lady has a multiple fractured broken leg.
And they weren't going to cast it or nothing?
No, they'll get her in a couple weeks.
What'd they tell her to do?
She left.
Go home and put some ice on it?
Real story. My wife was just like, of course, my
cow.
wife's the director at the hospital.
Sure.
And she was just like, wow, not in a judgmental way, but as you're saying, this is not the solution to the problem. This kind of medical care for a country is not the solution.
So, you may not know, but I'm just really curious about that. What was the...
I'll get you.
Why couldn't they? They didn't have the room, or
I'll tell you a lot.
They
more.
ran out of bandages that day.
I'll tell you more and more details when we're not on here.
Gotcha.
My wife should tell you because she'll tell it better. But she was just in awe of it.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm in awe of it.
Yeah, she's like, yeah, I'm glad that we have at least the way it works.
See,
right
that
now.
wouldn't happen in the United States because we have so many lawyers.
Yeah,
that lady with the leg or the foot.
And can a broken bone get a really bad infection and kill you?
Would sue the crap out of that hospital.
Sure.
That's what the HIPAA law is all about.
Sure.
It's liability.
Yeah. Hungry HIPAA.
Hungry.
All right. So, when I was in Canada one time at band camp, we had to change a tire. Let's talk about changing tires. I've changed a lot of tires. You and I are having a conversation, and I liked it because you totally blindsided me. And you said, hey, let's talk about 10 things everybody should know how to do.
Maybe we don't have to make 10, but I think there's certain things that people should know how to do. You should know.
It's amazing what people don't know.
Yeah, you should know how to change a tire.
You should know how to light a pilot light.
Well, yeah. But do you remember, at least when I went to driver's ed, they actually taught you how to change a tire in driver's ed?
Sure.
And I still do it that same way.
Mm-hmm.
You take the tire, you loosen the lug nuts, put the jack under it, you take the spare tire, you put it under the car, so in case the car falls, it doesn't fall on your leg.
Sure.
Then you jack it up, and you loosen the lug nuts some more. You take the other tire off, you put that under the car, you take the spare, you put it on there, tighten it up as much as you can, you drop it down, you tighten it up more.
And you go buy beer.
And you go buy beer.
Yeah. BWE.
So you should know how, anybody should know, or everybody should know how to change a tire.
Sure.
And there'd be people that aren't physically able. I get that. But if you're physically able, you should be able to change your own
I
tire.
get it. And I even get in this day and age that it's okay to teach people that you limp over to the side of the road and you call whoever on your fancy smartphone and they come and change it for you and all they do is bill your parents $60. I'm cool with that too because it keeps them safe somewhat. But yes, you need to know how to change the tire because it might be the only way to get out of where you're at.
Another thing I think people should know how to do, and maybe this one's not as relevant now as it used to be, but it's still relevant,
Okay.
is drive a manual transmission.
Sure. Both my kids could do it if they had to. They rode motorcycles and they both drove stick shift cars before, and I think I taught my 12-year-old how to drive my Challenger. I was in the driveway only though. We were only in my driveway, but he learned how to drive a stick shift when he was 12 or 13. But it could be a life-saving skill.
Well, I was just going to say.
Could be. That's totally not.
My insistence on that actually, in my opinion, saved my son's life in Afghanistan.
Being able to drive.
A manual transmission.
Yeah.
So when he was like 15, 16, I had a little pickup truck with 4-speed on the floor there. And I tried to teach him how to drive it, and it wasn't going well because I'm not the most patient guy in the world. And he was, having, don't give me that look. It's true. I know it's surprising, shocker, right?
People should have to drive a stick shift off duty. No, tell me your story.
Every mechanic should have to drive a stick shift off duty.
We're talking about your son's life now.
Okay,
so no,
in all seriousness. So he wasn't getting it, and I was leaving on deployment or whatever, and I said, all right, dude, that's your car. Figure it out because you ain't driving any other car but that one. Mm-hmm. And when I came back, miraculously, he knew how to drive it.
Well, when you tell a teenage boy his only option for cruising around town and going and seeing his friends and his girlfriends is a stick shift, they learn really fast.
Yeah, right. So that was my point.
I mean, you burn up a clutch, but they learn.
Yeah. Well, it was an older truck. Mm-hmm. So fast forward.
A 4-speed. Was it in a Zuzu?
It was in a Zuzu Pup.
You said 4-speed. I'm like, there's only
everything. Man.
There's only 4 models that have a 4-speed.
Is there anything you don't know about random technology?
There's lots of things because actually I'm pretty dumb or I'd be out making money. I have a lot of useless knowledge. Yeah, and I can remember numbers forever. Like your high school girlfriend's phone number. Yeah, it doesn't get me anywhere unless that was like some kind of go to Vegas and learn how to gamble. But tell me the story about your son.
So anyway, fast forward a few years. He's in the Army, right? He's in Afghanistan, and he was not a, door kicker guy. He was a helicopter mechanic. So he spent most of his time on a larger base. But there was one time he told me, and I don't think he'll mind me telling this story, but they were on their way. They're in a convoy. He was riding passenger seat in this truck that had a, manual transmission. Mm-hmm. And there was somebody else driving, and they got ambushed. So not his particular truck, like the convoy got ambushed. Mm-hmm. And the person that was driving panicked, started fumbling, and couldn't get the clutch in, was grinding the gears, and they were stuck. Mm-hmm. My kid grabbed the dude, threw him out of the way, jumped in the driver's seat, drove off out of the ambush, the kill zone, right?
Sure.
So I think that his ability to drive a manual transmission saved his life, potentially.
I wouldn't disagree with that whatsoever. And even though that's a very legit story, as in not that many people, only thousands and thousands of people have been overseas in a situation like that. Even more so would be, hey, you're out in the country somewhere in Iowa, and the tractor rolls over dad or grandpa or whoever, and the kid's out there helping them, and the only vehicle to go get help is the old stick shift farm truck or something.
Right.
Yeah. Or a 3 on the tree or something really fun like that.
That was my first car.
H pattern. So, yeah.
So,
but
changing the tire,
sure.
Right? Being able to drive a stick shift. I think people.
Simon had a great idea.
Yeah, he did.
I'm not going to talk about a single thing to do with training tonight, medical training. But Simon said number one thing was what? CPR, man.
Yep, and he's absolutely right.
Yeah, he is.
That was on his list, and as a great addition, everybody should, and I always say it, the more people know CPR, the more people will be saved.
Yeah. Give me another thing. What do you think's a list of things people should do?
Some physical things. You ought to be able to move, right? So we always say in the military, you need to be able to shoot, move, and communicate.
Sure.
All right?
You should be doing one or the other, right?
You should be doing one or the other. Mm-hmm. So, this is CVO gun talk, so we haven't talked about a gun for a minute, but I'm going to talk about shoot, move, and communicate. So shoot, you got to have some skills to defend yourself. We already talked about that. But I'm going to talk about the move part.
Yep.
So you should be able to move at least a half a mile at a reasonable pace without falling over and dying. That speaks to your fitness, right?
I would just be able to make that maybe. Yeah.
Well, I mean, but you ought to.
No.
I mean, you ought to
No,
be
I
able
could.
to. You ought to be able to run for help.
Sure.
To the next house.
Yep.
Or whatever. Walk briskly for help. Whatever.
Carry cans of ammunition up the hillside.
Yeah.
Something.
You should be able to move half mile. You should be able to lift your own body weight over your head. Not over your head, but lift your own body weight.
Ah, you lost me there, man. Who is?
Well, I'm not saying you can do it. It's something you need to strive for, right? I'm not saying that I can do all these things.
I need to lose 100 pounds if I'm going to be able to lift my body weight over my head.
Whatever the demographic is.
Yeah.
I mean,
My BMI.
but the point of that is you ought to be fit enough to move and have the mobility that
You're
would
starting
allow
to-
you to lift things.
You're starting to sound like Pincus and all those guys with tactical beards that hang around him that say that you should all be doing like CrossFit.
No, I'm not saying that. That's not everybody's deal. However, you shouldn't be.
That was actually a compliment from the fact that there's a lot of people, even like me, that you could have a lot of different training, but your body's not really ready to take.
Yeah, you got to be more. I'm going to use the word holistic. I like to use that word a lot. You got to be the well-rounded person.
Sure.
And that's kind of what I'm talking about as far as things
no,
you
wait,
ought to be able
I
to
am
do.
well-rounded.
Well, not as
I
far
think
as
you mean
shape.
skill sets?
Skill
Okay.
set, yeah. I mean, you ought to be able to, if you're in such bad shape that you can't even move yourself, a couple blocks and pick,
Sure.
and pick somebody up and drag them, out of a, burning car.
Sure.
You should work on that.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I agree. I totally get it. Yeah.
So what
I
is
would-
what are some of the things you got?
I think everybody should know how to like go fishing or hunting, Simple things. Could you clean a fish?
So you should be able to sustain yourself.
Sure. If you had to.
See, you get me on that. I mean, I can hunt and I can fish, but I haven't cleaned
Here's
anything
like
in a long time.
a lot of hunters will already know this, and people don't have to be into hunting, but it is kind of funny. And people come from different backgrounds, and you're like, I thought everybody knew that, And you grow up and you meet other people, and they teach you things. I've had a lot of people laugh when they hear me talk about like, okay, so like down south, there's aardvarks. You've been down south,
Yeah.
Fort Benning.
Yeah.
There's aardvarks all over downtown, down there. So,
Aardvarks or armadillos?
I'm sorry. There is not aardvarks.
Because if there's
everywhere.
aardvarks, that's
Hey.
way down south. Don't they have them in
Texas.
Australia or
Texas.
something?
So, no, armadillo. See, you got armadillos running around. So armadillos are kind of like opossums up here. So, there's a hunter wise tale that you never kill armadillos and you never kill opossums. And the theory behind that is they're two of the animals that a human can chase down and catch them. There's no such thing as a fast possum. You can chase a possum and you could walk up
Really?
and catch it. Sure. So it's from a wise tale point of view, but I get it as in, why would you want to get rid of these animals that you could catch and kill by hand if you had to, if you were starving out in the woods? So it's
true.
And it is. It's kind of weird how, I just grew up with that's something your dad taught you. You shoot raccoons if they're eating the bird seeds. You shoot raccoons if they're around the house eating the cat food, and some people don't like that. But they're varmints at that point, and they're a risk around the house, close up. I'm not going to go out in the woods and shoot raccoons for no reason. Gibson that works with me, he eats them, so he can shoot them.
There's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that. But possums, you always let them live, man. And that's I know there's all kinds of dead animals all over the road, but you see a lot of dead possums.
Did I ever tell you my possum story?
They're not fat. Did you kill it with a hammer?
No, but
Okay.
did I ever? It's a possum story.
Tell me.
You'll like it. So
Okay.
I was.
Did you eat it?
No, because I didn't even know you, and I followed your advice. We did not kill it.
Okay.
But this is a story, right? So we're doing phase 3 of the Special Forces Qualification course, which they call Robin Sage. It's a big unconventional warfare exercise in the Uwharrie National Forest. They take 12 guys that are students, and they're like, okay, you're a Special Forces team, and you're going to infiltrate to the country of Pineland.
Pineland.
Pineland has been, it's a very involved scenario. It's been going on for 50 years, but you infiltrate into the country of Pineland, which is, quote unquote, the Uwharrie National Forest, and you're going to hook up with the resistance, and you're going to fight the Republic, the army, the regular government. So it simulates, that you're going to stand up an unconventional warfare scenario and train an army, and they get all the towns, and there's people in these little towns in North Carolina that have been doing this for years
Sure.
as role players,
Yeah.
right? So anyway, fast forward. I'm on my student team. and I'm the student team sergeant, and we got the student team leader. And we're supposed to go to an area command meeting, which is where the rebels have their headquarters. So I gotta go back here. So
I'm envisioning Pineland. I'm suspending my disbelief right now.
No, Pineland's cool.
Yeah.
You see that? Ever see that hat I wear with the little pine that says "Land of the Free"? That's the Pineland flag, dude.
I like
It's
it.
an inside joke.
I understand.
Anyway, so about 5 days earlier, the rebels had given us a possum to mess with us. They're going to mess with the dudes. A lot of us were Northerners. Like, we're going to mess with the guys that are not from North Carolina.
Yep.
And they're like, hey, this stuff's really good. We're going to be really offended if you don't eat it. Here you go. And they left, and we're like, we're not eating that thing. We let it go. Ran off and is up in the top of a tree, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, a couple days later, we go to this area command meeting, and they came down. They put burlap sacks on our head, threw us in the back of a pickup truck, drove us around for about 2 hours. And I had kind of had my burlap sack up, so I could see we were just going in like a circle or a square. Yeah, absolutely.
Always cheat, always win.
Yeah, if you cheat, you ain't trying, right?
Yeah.
But I could see we were just going down gravel roads, and we ended up like 200 yards from where they picked us up.
Sure.
They let us out of the back of this truck. They lead us into this guy's garage. They take off our hoods. They got the big Pineland flag. They got candles. They got about like 6 dudes, in military uniforms sitting in chairs. It's all dark and seance-y. And they're like, come on over here. And we sit down. They're like, let's drink a toast to Pineland, right? And our cadre is behind us. And this guy pulls out some whiskey.
Real whiskey.
Real whiskey. And I'm like looking at him.
Is this a test?
Yeah, looking at the cadre, I'm like, is this a test? If I drink this, am I going to get like kicked out of here or what? But I didn't want to offend the guy because we're playing this role, right? I mean, this is we talk about reality-based training. This is reality-based training.
Yep.
So I down the shot. Team leader downs the shot. He's like, let's have another one. Toast to Pineland. So I'm getting a little bit like tipsy, right? Because I hadn't eaten anything much. For like 2 weeks.
You were supposed to eat the possum.
I weighed like 145 pounds, and like I'm doing shots. And then he asks us about the possum. He goes, how was the possum? And I lied my ass off. I'm like, we made a stew. And I knew that he knew that I knew that I was lying. But I concocted this huge story about the stew and how good it was.
But you were role-playing.
I was role-playing because I'm like, there have been stories throughout the course of this, they sent thousands of students, over the course of 50 years, that they would literally kick you out of their country and you would fail. Like, they'd be like, it would simulate like a real team being kicked out of whatever country they were in.
Sure.
Which is a bad deal.
Yeah, that's not good.
So, I had to say whatever I could to like keep this guy's rapport.
That's why you couldn't turn down the whiskey.
I could not turn down the whiskey.
You might have highly offended him.
It would have. So, we got out of that one, although I'm pretty sure, in hindsight, that he didn't believe a word I was saying.
Okay.
But, I mean, he was just messing with us.
Sure, he was suspending
the whole thing was messing with us. But that's my possum story. And
Don't kill possums, don't kill armadillos. They're the hunter's friend. You can chase one down and kill it with your bare hands.
So what else ought we be able to do?
What else should you be able to do?
We're talking about hunting.
Oh, I'm into that whole, like, you ought to be able to figure out how to catch some fish or something. Like, people should watch those shows. What was that one? Alone. They did out in British Columbia. Did you ever see that?
Yeah. Seen it.
Yeah. I mean, some of those guys had amazing skills, making the little fish traps and everything when the tide would come up, stuff like that. So
should you be
not
able
a big
to make
thing
a
in
shelter then?
Shelter would be a smart idea, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
How to, like, get clean water, how to capture water.
So survival skills.
Sure.
More or less.
And you know what? There are people. There's 2 ways to look at it. There's people that may never need those skills in their life because they would never go anywhere. If you're from the middle of Chicago, everything I can try to teach you isn't going to help you in the middle of Chicago. But on the other hand,
I don't think you're. I mean, I think you're more right than you think you are. So even if you're in the middle
of power in Chicago for like 4 days.
But I mean, maybe not specifically like, hey, I got to build a freaking lean-to shelter out of sticks, or I got to go catch a fish. But learning survival type skills gives you a survival mindset. And if you're in the middle of Chicago and there's a total breakdown of infrastructure,
you You won't get out of Chicago, by the way.
Well, no, you won't get out of Chicago, but you can use those skills to
Very
survive.
few people will actually get out of Chicago.
You can still use that mindset and those skills to survive.
You could make it through the first 3 or 4 days to see what actually happens. It'd be like I'm at least sticking around till the end of the game.
It kind of happened in Katrina, I guess. I wasn't there, but
Yeah, there's some bad things happen there.
yeah.
When people talk about, I was walking by the end cap in the store the other day, and I'm like, can't believe more people aren't buying freeze-dried food, which it's not like prepper. Why aren't people buying it? It's like, hey, we're going into winter, like normal winter. Like, hey, has anybody ever drove off the road and disappeared for like 2 days in Iowa, and they were 40 yards off the road?
They just found a lady that died, and she was like 5 months.
They found another one today.
Did they?
Yeah. Farmers always find them. It's that time of year. But, hers was like an Alzheimer deal. She wandered off. So not much you can do about that. I mean that respectfully, as in, I'm talking about the fact, like, if you go back a couple years, there's people that won't even remember it. Whatever. I just pay attention to stuff. Past the Hy-Vee in Marion.
Yeah.
7th Avenue, Marion.
Yeah.
There's the Horizon Center used to be over there. There's people, that dead-end road, you're literally talking 100, 200 yards off of 7th Avenue, Marion in the winter. There's a couple that drove off the end of a dead-end road, like, they pushed the snow to the end of dead-end roads, right?
So they covered up the little barrier reflectors.
Car just went right in there, poof, disappeared. Those people were missing a long time. Both dead in there. One died before the other. Bad deal. Whether they're older, so whether one, saw the other one, gave up the ghost, and was like, I'm not, how that works. Broken heart syndrome, whatever, I'm going to check out. But the point is, you could be missing for days and days and days right in town. So it's not far-fetched for you to drive off the road somewhere in Iowa, and you need to figure out how you should maybe stay warm for a day or two. Happened out by Springville, Iowa. It's happened several places around here. But so, yeah, people should have basic skills and the realization of, hey, you can live a long time without food, honestly. You know that. Yeah. You can live a long time. You could probably easily live a week. Everyone. Hardcore dudes can go 3 weeks without food. But you can't live very long without water.
No. What's it, like 72 hours, maybe?
There's that rule. They say 3 minutes. What is it? Simon should know. 3 minutes, 3 days, 3 weeks.
He has no idea what you're talking about.
Can't live without oxygen for 3 minutes. Can't live without water for 3 days, and can't live without for food for 3 weeks. Yeah. So, but it's weird because you're old enough. I mean that lovingly. And you grew up where?
North of Cedar Rapids mostly.
Yeah.
Or on the north side.
Yeah, we talked about that. But so, your grandma and grandpa, almost everybody's grandma. Did your grandma and grandpa have a farm? Did they? That's funny. I had no idea. Your grandma and grandpa have a farm?
Absolutely.
My grandma and grandpa had a farm. It's like you talk to average people, it's like, well, you know what your grandparents farm. And then you think to yourself, it's like, well, I shouldn't just assume everybody's grandparents had a farm.
Well, everybody in Iowa's grandparents.
But they did.
My dad's generation was the first one that moved to quote unquote town.
Sure.
Before that,
yeah.
all the way back to 1800s.
And the other part of your family looked down on them because they moved to town.
They moved to town, yeah.
But, it was normal to say, hey, why do you have a cellar full of food? Well, because you grow vegetables and you can't possibly eat them all right then, so you put them away. And you learn how to put away food and stuff like that. That's one of those things that these days that they should teach people, and that isn't even into the world or anything. It's like, hey, grow a garden, make some of your own food, sustain your own life a little bit, put it away, and maybe that'll actually become cool, just as cool as going to Nubo or eating foods with no GMOs or whatever other hippie stuff you want to do.
Well, if you grow your own food, you can be as hippie GMO free
That's what
as
I
you
mean.
want.
And so it's funny how in this world, you and I, neither of us live in an echo chamber like people might think, but
we don't even agree on our own show.
No, that's awesome. That's good. Well, neither do those really popular ESPN people that actually have followers. But
we got 80 followers.
Yeah, I just need to be meaner to you.
And one of them
tune in next week when I teach Mike what a dick he is. So
you don't need to teach anybody that because you'll get plenty of people to agree with you.
Well, you already said something about whiny veterans that served overseas and have PTSD. So I'm gonna move away so the lightning bolt hits you and not me. So. But you can do that. You're in the Army.
I'm just keeping it real. I'm not in the Army.
You were in the Army.
I was in the Army, but I'm just keeping it
Formerly
real.
Army.
I'm just keeping it real.
That's like when learning not to say, oh, you used to be a Marine. They'll correct you.
Former Marine.
Yeah, you're right. They'll correct you.
You were a Marine.
I understand.
Whatever. Right? Daryl? Right?
Yeah.
My buddy Daryl's a former Marine.
Yes. Hey, I respect them all until they do bad things. Not every guy in the military is a good guy, are they?
No.
Sometimes they like kill other Americans and stuff.
Sometimes they do. It
Yeah.
happens. It's a large group. You're going to have bad apples in every large group.
There is, whether it's in the military, police, or Catholic priest dudes. So there's bad ones everywhere.
True.
Not a big ratio, but they're everywhere.
They're true.
All right. Is there anything else you think people should absolutely know how to do? We didn't go into this very prepared. We had a vast different.
Well, no, I mean,
have you even come up with number 2? You went from 1 to 3. He can't even think of number 2.
Well, yeah, there isn't. They
Brew your own beer, I think he's going to say, or something like that.
Craziness.
Make your own spirits.
Make your own spirits.
Yes.
You should be able to
Have your own
You should be able to have
garden.
you should have the skills to defend yourself or your loved ones, whatever those skills may be.
Sure.
You should have
Hands-on skills.
Say hands-on skills. What fighting skills, whatever. You should be
Feed them and keep them safe.
I mean,
skills.
this whole list. We didn't even come up with 10 things, but you guys get the gist.
We can't. Yeah, we're a failure. We can't come up with 10 things.
But you don't, because the whole gist of it is you ought to be self-sufficient.
Really, we should ask people. That would be a great Facebook question. And we can't really make it 10 because we just need to say what are 5 things or 3 things every person should know how to do in this country.
I'll just say what
and we'll
people
get enough
shouldn't do.
variety actually that we'll have 10.
Yeah.
We're gonna do that.
All right.
James Tracy will send one because he's watching you, like our one dedicated follower. We should have him on the show sometime.
Yeah.
He wouldn't know what to do with himself. We'll bring Jesse on for that show. I got a certificate today.
Did you?
Yeah. I got to quit bending my notes. I don't want to bend my certificate. I put them in my pile of other certificates I never look at.
So
Hey.
what else we got going on?
Your mom made kick butt pumpkin pie.
She did make really.
Yeah,
Thanks,
people
Mom.
didn't see that, did they?
No,
Yes.
we ate that before.
We do have to have her on here so we can thank her for it.
Yep.
Other things to talk about. You and I have agreed that for the benefit of everyone else, we're going to give our professional opinion about some actual stuff.
Yeah, so
So-
we're going to maybe make a
should do it.
segment about
Maybe
equipment.
like 1 or 2 product
Yeah,
reviews.
maybe some product reviews.
You and I are going to go out and zero some rifles together.
Yep.
We are.
So-
I have another one to it. I have a scoped gun you're going to learn to zero. I want to see. It'll be fun.
I mean, it's relearn, I guess. I used to.
I know.
I
You're a
have-
former
I-
action guy.
haven't done it in a long time, so
You got to remember if you
the
don't,
minutia of it.
if you don't
escapes
know
me.
what you're doing, all you have to do is look cool.
Look cool.
Yeah.
Right,
You taught
absolutely.
me that.
Yeah.
One of the things in today's class, I'm going to go back to that, Andrew. I loved it. Talked about bad sources of information.
Yeah.
I love it. And it was funny because they're talking about, of course, self-defense laws, stuff like that. So where are some of the bad sources? Well, start with police officers. That was one of them.
Some police officers.
No, some, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not all of them. It's just people look at that person and say, oh, they're a police officer, so they would know. And they don't always know.
Yeah, because they're not experts. I mean,
Or they went to the academy in 1986.
yeah, and they don't really teach. I mean, they don't teach them lawyer level stuff at the police academy about every single nuance of the law, right?
No.
I mean, if there are some police officers that are probably like subject matter experts,
Sure.
but generally they're probably not.
Yeah. No, and granted, obviously, I didn't mean the problem is just like you said, there's bad apples, and not even in the event of it's a bad apple officer, you could have an officer that doesn't know the answer that says the wrong answer.
So an uninformed or misinformed.
Misinformed. That happens a lot. But most firearms instructor, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
We
you
can
and
probably name a few,
I could name a few. I won't do that, but I will name a few.
but there's plenty out there.
I'm glad to see.
Not us.
No, not us.
We are very informed.
But I like that. Like you said, is you could know everything in the world about different firearms and not know anything
Center
about self-defense.
axis relock.
Yes. I like that. It's sexy the way you say it. Gun magazines, that was a good one. But yeah, worst place ever, he wrote, was, Internet gun forums was second to worst place ever. So that's right behind mainstream media.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So the internet gun forum thing kind of goes along with the never read the comments.
oh my God.
If you want to like get dumber by the second, just read the comments on any subject as it relates to firearms.
It's crazy, isn't it?
I
You
am,
know, you're going to have more people dislike us now. We have 72
no,
viewers.
because you've already set me up as
68.
like if this was the WWE,
Yeah,
somehow I've become the heel.
I like it.
the heel like in the wrestling.
I get it.
But I'm gonna be like The Rock, right? He started out as a heel,
Sure.
and now everybody loves The Rock.
Sure, they do.
So that's
I think
what
it has to do.
I'm gonna transform
with
myself.
how he looks. That's why they like him. I know my wife likes him.
Or is it just because he didn't care?
I don't know.
Because I
Maybe
don't
it's
care.
because he's Samoan. He's just cool.
He's cool.
He's got tattoos.
He is cool.
And he can make fun of himself.
Yeah.
That's the best part.
So, but I mean, I forget where I was going with this.
I don't know. We were talking about mainstream media and bad gun advice or self-defense advice, and then you
I kind of
started
went off on the WWE.
I think you were just focused on The Rock. It's okay.
I like The Rock.
Yeah,
Can you smell what The Rock is cooking?
Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah, he's cool. No, but I mean, you watch so much bad advice, man. There's so many people out there that don't know what the heck they're talking about.
No. And you saying that there's so many people out there that don't know what they're talking about, they just see you as an arrogant dick.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
But they would be wrong.
They are wrong. I mean, you're not arrogant at all.
No.
So,
and the crowd goes wild. Anyway.
No, but it's, yeah. And just like somebody else was saying, like, how's the store doing this and that? And they were talking today. I'm like, a couple of my employees were there today, and lots of friends were in that class. Customers were in that class. And some customers kind of already knew what they were getting into. Some of them, I would say, are new to this kind of, not mindset, but they're new to this level of learning about this subject.
Sure. We get pretty in-depth and stuff.
Oh, you and I do. But they came out of there today, and they were like, I got it already, and I already trusted what you said, but I really get it. Like you and I say, even cornbread. I was sitting outside with cornbread when I might have been smoking. And he's like, I keep going to these different instructors that are great instructors, that are like the instructors in their subject, and they keep all kind of like saying the same thing. And I'm like, yeah, that's when you know you're headed down the right path.
Right.
Like, over here, have these really awesome skills if you have to have it, and know how to use these little tools over here and be really good at it if you have to do it. And,
try not to use your skills if you don't need to.
Yeah, like very much don't use your skills if you don't need to. Except, hey, over here, use all those skills that are the ones that about communicating and just staying out of it, But it's hard for some people. But it's when you are like talking about the gun forums, and we don't have to name names. Facebook's horrible. It's probably one of the worst ones. But just the bad advice that just gets retold and retold and retold.
You want to know something funny? So I got
if it's about a gun
stories.
forum Facebook story, tell me.
Sort of, right?
Okay.
So my dad is an older gentleman, right? Not a gun guy. He was a hunter at one time,
Sure.
so he's not unfamiliar with guns. I went over to visit him before he came over here to the podcast, as you know, and he asked me what I did today, and I said, well, I went to a seminar on self-defense law.
Yep.
And he goes, what'd they tell you? Drag him inside? I'm like, that's exactly what he said not to do.
Yes.
And I told him I actually explained to him what curtilage was and all this stuff.
Sure.
But my dad is totally innocently, that was a thing.
All he's doing is regurgitating what people told him.
Yeah.
And just like when we were in Mass Ayoub's class, or no, I'm sorry, you weren't there. He always has everybody kind of do some things like, hey, anybody ever heard this? Hold your hand up. And the whole point is, some people are kind of like, the power of holding your hand up is, look around and tell yourself. This wasn't like Mike's dad's the only person. That was super common.
That's common knowledge, right?
That was common knowledge almost in the 90s, for sure in the 80s.
Or common advice.
Yeah. You're right. Common advice. As soon as you start going back further than the 80s, it was like the golden rule. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, well, it turns out they don't have a gun on them, put a knife in their hand, all that. And like Mass would point out, where did people like your dad hear that from usually? Did he ever tell you?
No, I never asked him, but I'm sure he heard it from people he knew. And
people he knew. And in our class, in one of the class that, in the Mass Ayoub class, he would say, okay, everybody hold your hand up if you heard this advice. Things, shoot them in the doorway, whatever, drag them inside. And then he'd say, if you were told that advice by someone in law enforcement or the court system, keep your hand up. And all these people, because it's true. Cops used to tell people that. Mm-hmm. Cops were told that. So, hey, everything evolves, right? But yeah, I liked the very simple example today. Not everybody's a hunter, but like Andrew said, is, hey, you ever shoot like a 200-pound mammal that bleeds with holes in it? And then you like drag it to your truck because that's what you do when you're a hunter. I think those big long smear marks kind of tell everybody
Kind of give it away.
you shot a mammal and you moved it.
That's what we call evidence.
Yeah. Clue. So,
Clues.
no, that was a great class. I really look forward to it. But lots of bad advice out there. Bad advice, and you can try to help some people. We're helping 72.5 people that are watching here. But you can't save everybody. I've really made the mistake for far too many years of trying to save too many people. You can't. I'll spend the time on the people that want to learn. They want to learn and do it the right way.
Yeah, and keep promoting the right way. And they tell two friends, and they tell two friends. It's kind of like that old commercial, right?
If you want to wear a $5 outside the waistband nylon holster with your Icaria 45 because they don't make a 46, you do that. And if you want to shoot people outside your yard and drag them inside your house, go for it.
But that's not what we're going to tell them to do.
That is not what I'm going to tell them to do.
No.
But I'm not going to stand by and watch them give bad advice. Like I said, internet forums, that's one thing. The only time I step in, and John Gibson that works for me will tell you times that John's a big softie, and he's like, you were really mean to that guy. That guy's never going to shop here again. He told me this, this, and this, and this. I'm like, John, he just told somebody insanely horrible, bad advice. And when I told him, don't ever say that in here to somebody, and they get offended by that, I don't care. You're not going to sit in the store. I believe in the whole First Amendment thing until you start giving people really bad advice that might get them killed or make them go to jail. And then First Amendment means you can go tell anybody that went that, right? Just not in my store.
I mean, First Amendment doesn't mean it gives you the right to say whatever you
Go
want.
say
But
whatever
it doesn't
you
mean
want.
people have to agree with you.
No, I mean, it to me, the First Amendment is an absolute go say whatever you want. I don't even care. I can't even say the things we're not allowed to say because then they're considered threats or whatever. I don't care what you say, but go do it in your own forum, your own house, your own yard, your own
you don't have to
Facebook
agree with
page,
it, right? Yeah.
and not in my store. So
Yeah.
I don't, go. Yeah. Some people say, what are you, socialist? I think one of your Facebook haters.
My Facebook friends.
Facebook friends. You know, the guy that keeps creating new names and getting on CVO's page to bitch about things. Yeah. What are you, socialist? I laugh about that. I'm pretty sure the White House Facebook page doesn't let me and you post whatever we want on there, do they?
No.
But I don't think they're crushing the First Amendment by that.
No.
What I do think is there's more than 126,326 attractive residents in the Cedar Rapids area. It depends on how much you drink. I see they put that on a coaster. A coaster is normally under a beer. People that drink enough beer would believe that. I think it's all a tool to get people to move here.
It's a ploy.
Ray gun.
It's a ploy.
Can't believe they used the name gun.
Wow.
Ray gun.
So what else we got? Anything?
I really don't have anything.
Time
It's
to
been
wrap
a
it
long
up?
day.
Yeah.
Officially, I've been now working, like officially working. I hardly ever work. I hear that all the time from people. You're doing one of your jobs. I'm playing cop, doing whatever. I've only worked 13 and a half hours so far today.
Yeah.
Only. I'm almost like you. It's almost like a normal day for you other than
It's my day off.
good for you. All right. Got anything else you want to add?
No, we're good.
So we're going to do a couple product reviews next time.
Yep.
You're going to tell us more about what
I'll
grass
try
we
to do
found out.
I'll try to do some research on that.
Yeah,
V8 situation.
We might have your mom on the show.
Yeah.
We might have my son on the show. We might have Simon's son on the show. We'll figure something out.
Yeah.
We might have a special guest. Andrew Bronca was all about being on the show. He had to drive back to Des Moines tonight, so he can't do it. But what we are going to count on is he says, I will be on as often as you want if we can do it by like call-in thing, which I know those guys over there have the technology for it.
Sure.
So, speaking of technology, it's been a long time since I warned everybody. Watch out for the red Chevy truck. It's all the red Chevy truck's fault. Till next time.
Peace out.
See ya.